Hello, everybody. This is Kathy Rigling with Orange Audubon, and today we're going to talk about how to count birds for science with your students, which I think is the most fun thing to do. So let's get started. This presentation was created with support of the Cornell K-12 education program. Um, they create innovative resources and trainings to build science skills and inspire young people to connect to their local habitats, explore biodiversity, engage in citizen science projects, which is what counting birds is all about. Of course, I am with Orange Audubon Society, and our mission is to promote public understanding of and interest in wildlife and the environment that supports it. So, what is community science? Sometimes you might hear it called citizen science, and you might also hear it called participatory science. It's all the same thing. So, in community science, people everywhere report observations of natural events using basic scientific protocols. You might look at this map of the world and think, oh, those are city lights and things like that. And that's not what it is. Those are combinations of points of data that was submitted on a single day. I believe this was for backyard bird count, the Great Backyard Bird Count. And those represent data points. So you can see all over the world, people were reporting their sightings. So community science or citizen science are projects in which volunteers partner with scientists to answer real world questions, in this case about birds. It helps the community of scientists put together all this information to get a good picture of how populations of birds are doing. So there's a lot of community science projects, and they range from, stars to frogs to insects to rain, ice, all kinds of stuff. But we're going to focus on birds for this. So why in your school? Well, community science is exciting. It's real world. It's authentic. It's an opportunity to study wild animals outdoors. It definitely sparks kids' curiosity. It teaches STEM content and meets science standards. It's helping birds. It's very motivating, and it connects the students to the scientific community. It's a very powerful thing and a lot of fun. So the Cornell Lab has several citizen science projects, and they've been running for a very long time. And in all these projects, there's some things that are true for all of them. So these all involve identifying, observing birds, collecting data, entering it online, and then the ability to retrieve and view that online data. If you're collecting the data, you don't have to retrieve it, but it's out there for anyone that wants to study particular species of birds, they can access it. And your observations matter. It doesn't matter the age. We've had, primary level students all the way, to adults. And sometimes the young students see really interesting birds and that their observations are very important. So why birds? And this is a photo that was put together by the Cornell Lab. It's just gorgeous of some of the different colors of birds of the world. And these are not AI, they're real pictures of birds that you might see. And your students might say, well, I don't see birds anywhere. Well, when you start paying attention to them, then you see them all over. Maybe not this extreme, but you definitely start paying attention to them. So pretty much anywhere you go outside, you're going to see at least one bird, and probably more than that. Well, you might wonder, well, we don't know how to identify them. Well, you can learn how, and there's a lot of really great tools that you can use that your students can be successful doing this, right away. So how do you get students ready to count birds? So these are some steps. First, on your campus, you want to find places where birds are going to be found. So where are you going to find birds? Well, where they can find food or water or shelter or all of those. All of those are even better. So for example, this is a sparrow and has not only a hiding place in this bush, but it also has food. So that's a really good place to find it. Decide on a time to count birds. The best time of day to count birds is first thing in the morning. They're just like us. They're hungry. They're not getting a cup of coffee, but they're getting food. They're very hungry. But if you don't have that option, you can see birds throughout the day, especially this time of year when it's cooler throughout the day. Now, to report the bird sightings, you will need a free account on eBird, which is one of the longest running citizen science projects in the world. It's been running since the early 2000s. It's very easy to use, and there's a lot of tools to help you use it, but it's not hard at all. So when you go into the website for eBird, which is it's just ebird.org, you create a Cornell Lab account, and then it gives you access to a lot of resources. So that'll be really nice. Then you choose an ID resource, something to help you identify birds. So Merlin is very popular, very user-friendly, and you can use it on your phone. And it's an app, it's free. But you don't have to. If you want to stay away from using phones, you can use actual paper field guides. They might be available in your local library, or you can easily get a field guide of birds for your area for $15 or under. And it doesn't matter which one, as long as it includes your area that you're at. So what do you tell your students? Well, this is how you identify birds. You look at their size, their shape, their color, and their behavior. And so for size, you can teach your students, sparrow is a very tiny bird, and then a robin, and you might use cardinal. They see more cardinals, is medium size, and a crow is a bit larger, and then a goose is very large. And it could be in between these sizes. You think about the family of birds that it might belong to, and these are the common families. There's more, is the bird you're seeing a woodpecker, an owl? Is it a bird of prey? Is it a duck? Is it a songbird? A goose? A gull? Those are the basic types. There are others. And then try to pick out, when you see a bird, the main colors that you see, the three main colors. It could just be one solid color too. And look at what the bird was doing. Maybe you have feeders. It's there. Maybe it was wading in a retention pond, on the ground, in a tree or bush, on a fence or wire, or maybe it was soaring in the air. Now, if you use that Merlin app, these are the questions it asks you. And so it automatically will use your answers to generate a list of possible birds, which makes it really fun. So you might, if you did one, and I did this as an example, I think I put in a small bird in the tree, brown, black, and it came up with these. Now you might wonder, why did it have a black bird here? Because the female of this bird is brown and streaky and looks very familiar. It's similar to these other birds. And then you can look at it and say, oh yeah, that's my bird. Or maybe you don't see it there. When you find the matching bird, you click on it and it'll give you information about that bird. If you're using Merlin to do your counting, you can submit it to there, but it's not going to go to any scientific database if you do it through Merlin. It'll keep track for you of what birds you've seen, or maybe a school list of what you've seen at your school, but it will not go to any scientific database. So this is okay for younger grades. Now, you can use a field guide to help identify birds. One thing you do when you plan a bird count is maybe have the students do a little project where you pick out the common birds of your area. Each student gets assigned a bird. They look up information. They could use All About Birds, which is the Cornell website. It's excellent. They can use books. And so they become an expert on that bird, so that when you're out doing the bird count and they see that bird, then they'll be able to share with the class. Oh, there's an indigo bunting, or there's a Carolina chickadee. And here's an example. So these were all students recently, and these were, third to fifth graders. So the student had done a really great drawing and all the details of the palm warbler. And when they went outside, doesn't that match up really well? They knew what bird it was. So here's a way to use the Merlin app to determine the common birds in your area. So you open the app and there's a place where it says explore birds. And then there's a slider at the top up here. And you can set it to your local birds and to the right season. And then it will generate a list of the common birds for your area for that season, which will help you eliminate what should be there. Now, rare things do show up, but generally you're going to see those common birds of your area for that season. So these are common Central Florida winter birds. And these little bar charts here are showing what time of year that they're seen. So you notice like the phoebe, the palm warbler, the yellow rump warbler, they're missing during the summer because they're not here. And other birds like cardinals and red-bellied woodpeckers, they're here all year. So they just have a solid bar chart. So before you do a count with your students, decide how you're going to submit your information. You can use Merlin, but you can only do one bird at a time. And it only records species and it doesn't go to any database. But you can use eBird, and that is definitely useful to scientists. And but for both, you have to have an eBird account. So here's what you do in Merlin if you want to just save your sightings in Merlin. So when you get to the ID and you find your bird, like, wow, we saw a painted bunting. Wouldn't that be awesome? It says, this is my bird. You click on it, and then you click on Save with Merlin. It'll save it on your device, and you'll have a list that you can look at of all the birds you've seen. Or if you're doing a school list, it'll have a list of everything they've seen, and it'll have like the first, the date of when you first saw that. But to do eBird, you use the app. It'll track the date, the time, the location, the distance, and you can submit it from your app, which is really cool. And you can also submit it using the website, but it's a whole lot easier to do it from the app. And when you're doing your bird count, if you can't identify a bird, don't worry about it. I can't identify, there's some birds like this bird here, that was in the water, and it was backlit, and there was no way to identify that, at least for me. So that bird did not get recorded, and that's okay. You can't identify everything. So here's a little bird etiquette to share with your students. If you're watching a bird and it starts acting differently, it stops doing whatever it was doing, you're too close. It's noticed you, so back away. That's why we have binoculars. Stay on trails, don't go on private property. If you happen to have a nest, don't get too close because the parent could leave the nest, abandon the babies. Just use your binoculars and look at it from a distance. Don't play bird calls because it can upset the birds. If they have a nest, it can draw them away. And if others are looking at a bird, and this is true when you're with a group, instead of running up and yelling, "What are you seeing?" they should walk slowly, and that way the bird doesn't get scared and fly away. If you're doing multiple counts throughout one day, do a different list for each group. Don't keep one for the whole day because that's less useful to the scientist because it's hard to say if you ran it all day, what time of day you saw it, because time of day is important for recording information. So I will give in this next part a tutorial on how to use eBird Mobile. And this is what the app looks like. It's free. And when you get ready to use it, and you can practice with this, you're not going to mess anything up. This is what it looks like, and you click Start Checklist. And then you'll see this screen come up, and this is where you enter the birds that you're seeing. But actually, before you do that, it has location. It says auto selected. So you can click on that, but you can also click on like what's nearby. And if you're nearby something that looks like fire, that's a hot spot, and you want to record from there. If you're not near any normal previously recorded location, you can just put the actual location. And if you're putting a school in parentheses, you can put restricted access because No one's going to come to your school to count the birds. It's just going to be a record for you. And then what you do is you click on the left side next to each bird's name to add how many you saw. And you can keep adding. If you make a mistake, you can go back and take it off. And if you downloaded the Merlin app, you can click on the name of the bird because the Merlin app is going to show up right here. And you can check the identification before you actually say, oh, yeah, that's what we really saw. So an easy way to find birds instead of scrolling the whole list is you can type the first few letters of the name, and then it's going to pop up like this. If I saw goldfinch, I would start typing it in. All right. Now, if it has an R by its name, it means it's rare for your location, either because it's the wrong time of year for it to be there or it's normally not seen in your area. It doesn't mean it's not that bird, but you do have to add an extra step if you do see something rare or hear something rare. So if you're confident that it's a rare bird, then you either add a photo or a description. So like I saw a yellow-breasted chat. So I put in a description of what it looked like and where it was and what it was doing. And that way the eBird reviewers can see, did I really see it or did I hit it by accident? Because that happens too. And if you accidentally put something in, it's not a big deal. You'll get an email and they'll say, did you really see this? Do you have a photo? Can you give a description? You can, it's okay. Then you just take it off your list. It's not a big deal. And when you finish, you're going to review. You're going to make sure your numbers are right. Because sometimes your fingers will click on these and you'll be like, oh no, I didn't mean I saw 2,000 robins. I thought I saw 2 robins, and you can change the number by clicking on the side. You can change it. And if you forgot to put in a location, it's going to prompt you to do that. Remember, you can just click on nearby and you can pick what's closest to you. And once you're ready, you hit submit, and then it's been sent to the researchers. So there is a great little 1-hour free class online, and it's from Cornell Lab, and it's in their Bird Academy. Here is the website. It's all about birds, and this one is free. Or if you even go to the eBird website, they have it linked there. So this could really help. You'll give you a little more detail than what I've given you. So our next webinar is Improving School Habitat for Nature Study, January 14th. Hope you can join us at that time. Hope you go out and count birds. Some of you might be involved in Christmas bird counts. And if you are, thank you for participating. Christmas bird counts have been going on for over 100 years now. So you're contributing to a long-term study of birds and their populations. So if you've watched this, you can email me at education@orangeaudubonfl.org, and you can get a certificate of participation to show that you did attend this, and I'll be happy to do that. If you're in Orange County, you can email me and set up a time, and I can come out and help your students do a bird count and bring out the binoculars. So have a great evening, and thank you for joining us for this program.